Hello there, AP Human Geography students. Let's keep learning all about population issues. Let me make this full screen. I talked about this activity last time. And okay, here are today's big thoughts. How long have you lived in Vegas? Where are your parents from? Why do people migrate? What was Ireland's biggest migration? Why did people come to Nevada? And why did people come to Las Vegas? So this is kind of a mini history lesson here where I'm really tying in the Vegas experience to these human geo concepts. Let's do it. Okay, so, well, actually, before we get there, let's talk about this. You got to know what parts of the world have gender imbalances. I'm going to zoom in on this picture so you'll see it better. But this map shows you human sex ratios by countries. And if it's pink, there are more women than men. If it's green, numbers are about the same. And if it's blue, there are more men than women. And traditionally, countries should be pink. Okay, there should be more women than men. Women have generally better immune systems. Men do a lot more dangerous, crazy things and die more often. So if a country's in kind of like equilibrium, it should be pink or maybe green. And you know what? There probably are some statistical anomalies. There probably should be some blue countries around the world. But I think you can see by this map that there are some parts of the world that tend to be blue. And I mean, look, it's the Arab world, the Middle East, a good amount of developing Asia, and China. So what's up with these Middle Eastern countries and then developing Asia having almost universally more men than women? Because that shouldn't happen. So what we can say here is there definitely is some sort of like sex selective abortions going on in the Middle East and in developing Asia, because where the ladies at? Okay, there should be more ladies. And I know that statistically speaking, like Canada, Russia, and Ukraine have like way more women than men. So find yourself a Canadian lady out there if you're a dude looking for a lady, because they're abounded. All right, cool. Moving on. Yeah, that's really what I interpreted from that map. The Arab world, India, and China have more men than women. The rest of the world has more women than men, especially Canada and the former Soviet Union countries. Whoa, look, it's like I had them memorized. So yeah, make sure you get that interpretation of the map in your notes because these questions will come up on a test. Where are the ladies at? What up, Canada? I see you. All right, moving on. So, oh yeah, let's talk about these terms with sex ratio. So, just like you saw on that map, look at all these Canadian girls. They're just living the Canada life. Look at all these Ukrainian women, all about Ukraine. But then when we get to China, it's all boys. When you get to India, it's all boys. But then the word dependency ratio. So that word applies to sort of both of these pictures. The dependency ratio is something you should have picked up from the key issues. And dependency ratio means when your country either has it's sort of like your country has to have a balance between the people who are working and the people who are not working. And in your society, children are not working and super old people are not working. So there should be sort of like a scale, a balance, so to say, where you add up all the people at middle age and they should roughly account for all of the old people and all of the young people. But as we know, there are certain parts of the world where there's too many old people and not enough working people. And then there's parts of the world where there's too many young people and not enough working people. And in sort of both situations, there is a dependency ratio problem because you want those numbers to be balanced. You want your working population to care for the upcoming population and the retiring population. So that's dependency ratio for you. All right, dependency ratio, the country may be too old. Canada's got ladies for days. I see you, Canada. All right, Africa's got so many kids. That's a dependency ratio problem. And then Ukraine, women are saying we're not a brothel. Yeah, okay, there's a lot of Ukrainian women. They're not all about doing brothel stuff. And then here's a bunch of Indian men and a bunch of Chinese boys. Keep hanging in there, boys. You'll get there eventually. Okay, let's talk about these terms. These all should have been picked up from your key issues. Jon Snow, cholera, pandemic. Hey, if you don't know what the word pandemic is in 2020, I've got a word for you. HIV and IMR. So Jon Snow is this guy right here. He was sort of a geographer and a doctor back in the 1800s, and he successfully used maps to determine where the disease cholera could be found in London. A lot of people said, oh, cholera just exists in the air. Those people don't pray enough. So that's just a bunch of crap, okay? Like, he used maps, he figured it out. And then a pandemic is a disease that spreads all over the world, like coronavirus 2020. All right, there you go. And then HIV, that's a pandemic disease that was a big deal. Well, I mean, it still is a big deal today, but it was a bigger deal in the 1980s and 90s when we didn't have any kind of treatment for it. Nowadays, we have treatment for it. But HIV is still especially a big deal in Africa today. And you guys should know what HIV is, and I'll zoom in on it. HIV, if this guy has HIV. It's a disease that your immune system no longer works for your body. Your immune system basically shuts down. So if you ever get even a little bit sick, you get really, really sick, and your whole body starts giving up. Like this guy next to him just pooped himself. That's rough. And then IMR, that's infant mortality rate. I don't really have any pictures associated with this, but infant mortality rate, that's not a number you want to be really high in your country. That means that babies are dying before they turn the age of 5. And the infant mortality rate was really high all over the world 200 years ago, but with the spread of modern medicine and doctors and caring for moms and babies, that number has gone way down all over the world. So it leads to more babies surviving, but more babies survive leads to increase in population. Those are issues to talk about. Okay, so what are these people spreading? Germs. Wash your hands. Wear a mask. All that. All right, this guy's dying of cholera. Cholera is a disease where it's sort of like all the water in your body gets flushed out of your body. Terrible way to die. Don't recommend it. And that guy has AIDS. And then, yeah, HIV, AIDS. So AIDS is a big, big problem in sub-Saharan Africa. But it's also a problem in, Russia and basically the former Soviet Union. Yeah. Oh, and Thailand. How did Thailand get so much AIDS? And then there's Jon Snow. This guy's dying of probably cholera, and that's what the bacteria disease. Oh, it's just the worst. And then here was that map Jon Snow made. He said, I'm going to see where all the people in London have cholera, and he found they were all located really close to Broad Street. And he said, well, I think the disease must exist in the water of the Broad Street pump. So he decided to shut off that water pump, and within a couple days, all the cholera went away. So that's pretty great, Jon Snow. Good choice. And yeah, India is really a big country we got to talk about when it comes to population statistics, because India is still to this day the second place most populated country in the world. But I think in the next 10 or 20 years, it is going to pass China as being the number one populated country on planet Earth. And India is just crowded, okay, especially all along the Ganges River and the Ganges River Valley plain here. So many people. Oh my gosh. And I've never been to India myself, but I've had friends who've gone to India, and they generally don't recommend it. They say there's just too many bodies. So let's check out some of these pictures, okay? Yeah, talk about density with India. People are just getting pushed into the water. There's so many of them. And yeah, people per square mile, especially all around the cities of Kolkata and Panta. This is kind of the big holy river sites, so that place is just packed. And look at all these people trying to get on this boat. You gotta have some people hanging out off the side. Oh my goodness. And yeah, here's India's population graph. So India's definitely like, it's probably, I would still call India a late stage 3, but then this is 2014. I think this graph has improved a little bit in the last 6 years. So yeah, India is still stage 3. Maybe it's closer to stage 4, but still so many people are being born there. It's a stage 3 country, and that's a lot. Okay, so yeah, these are some pretty rough pictures here. Sorry, kids. But China has some serious issues with its gender imbalance. And a lot of it has to do with this policy that I think China has actually recently overturned called the one-child policy. And this policy was a big part of Chinese culture for the last 50 years, where they said, China has too many people, we got to control our population development, only have one kid per family. And the thought pattern is, if each man and woman only has one child, then every generation the population will halve. And what they didn't recognize, though, was right around the same time, we were starting to have the technology where parents could evaluate what the gender of the baby would be while the baby's still in the mother's womb. And what ended up happening was a lot of parents said, well, if we only have one kid, we gotta have it be a boy. So they put a lot of effort into giving, so many resources and so much credit to boys whenever they were born. It's this concept of little emperors. And then also, like, if ever they did have a baby girl, a lot of times those baby girls ended up in some pretty terrible situations. And but unlike terrible situations, some of those baby girls get adopted. Hey, welcome to America, baby Chinese girls. Yeah, it really just that's really rough, because if China continues to have this gender imbalance, it's going to create some big problems for them in the long run. And I think already there's something like 200,000 Chinese boys that outnumber Chinese girls. So within the very near future, there's going to be a whole lot of Chinese boys that are never going to find wives. Going to be some trouble there. I want to share a quick story here, kind of related to this concept of little emperors. You see, like, look at this Chinese classroom. Everybody's a dude. When I was in South Korea, there's a little bit of that little emperor vibe there, too. And one of my students, one of my really great, amazing elementary school girl students who was just succeeding at all my tests and just doing wonderfully, she came to my class one day and she was crying her eyes out. And I was like, well, why are you so sad? She says, teacher, today's my birthday. And I'm like, oh, like, today should be a great day. Or is your family going to take you out to dinner? Do you get any presents? And she says, teacher, I only got one present. My grandmother gave me $20. And, I didn't really know her family's economic background. So I was like, well, hey, $20, that's pretty cool. Like, you should be happy about that. And she says, teacher, my brother's birthday was last month, and he got like a total of $1,000 from all their family. And I felt really sad about that. I was like, man, like, the family culture has so much of a higher importance to boys than girls. That's rough. And then, yeah, there's this idea that every woman just has one child, preferably a boy, so the one-child policy. And then, yep, two, mom and dad, one baby. And that's the idea. If every couple has just one kid, eventually China's population will decrease and it'll be more under control. And, yep, all these baby Chinese kids, they're kind of confused. And international adoption, that's pretty great stuff. And then bad things happen to babies. Okay, so now let's get into my main topics today. So let's talk about one of the biggest migrations in world history. It was called the Great Potato Famine. Should I do this in an Irish accent? Yeah, why not? I feel like it. So the Great Potato Famine was a period of mass starvation, disease, and immigration in Ireland between 1845 and 1852. It was really the worst time for the people on the Emerald Isle. 1/3 of all Irish died. 1/3 went to America. Some of those people who went to America later were their ancestors will ultimately create Mr. Brown here. And 1/3 of them survived. So really, Ireland got totally, totally wrecked. And today, Ireland has 4 million people. But there are 40 million Americans with Irish heritage. Okay, so that was my attempt of an Irish accent. But Irish people really love potatoes. And there was this disease that affected potatoes, so they really couldn't grow anything on Ireland for this, 7-year period. And it was really bad. But so many Irish people left Ireland, they created this lasting culture here in the United States. And still to this day, there's a whole lot of ties between Ireland and the United States. I mean, there's literally 10 times the Irish people in America that are still in Ireland. That number there is so crazy. And then in some international policy stuff you should be aware of, England didn't allow relief to be sent to the Irish people during this famine. England and Ireland have always had it out for each other. IRA, get it. And it largely had to do with, even back 150 years ago, there were disputes about controlling Northern Ireland and controlling the whole island. So those disputes kind of continued to this day, and there are still some Irish people that are pissed off at England for allowing 1/3 of the population to die. So get it. All right. So the population decrease in Ireland. Along the coast with England, this is where a lot of the kind of loyalists were, so they actually didn't do as bad. But in most of the island, a lot of people either died or immigrated away. It was bad. Yeah, and here's kind of a statue to commemorate that period. These starving Irish trying to get away. That's what a potato blight looks like. Here are people coming to America, seeing the Statue of Liberty. That's pretty cool. And then all these Irish parades and Irish culture, St. Patrick's Day, get it, Irish folk. And Irish immigration by year. So yeah, you see during the potato famine, just epic numbers of Irish people came to the United States. So this is how many millions of Irish came? So that's got to be like 2 or 3 million just in 1848. So a much larger cultural legacy of Ireland now exists in America than you could probably even argue even Ireland itself. Okay, and a lot of those Irish people actually came into Ellis Island. Ellis Island is an island in New York City, just almost a couple hundred yards away from the Statue of Liberty Island, actually. And today, Ellis Island isn't really used as a immigration point. It's just kind of a museum. Today, we have immigration checkpoints at airports because that's how people generally get around today. And not a lot of people take ships to go to new countries. But Ellis Island was the primary receiving point for immigrants to America for the entire first half of the 20th century. And Ellis Island's definitely a museum. It's kind of a symbol of America's immigrant character because more people have migrated to America than all other modern countries combined. That's an amazing statistic. I wish it somehow could be factored into human geography stuff. I mean, it sort of is. You just know that if people want to immigrate somewhere, they're most likely going to say America. All right? You know, what can I say? Yeah, so Ellis Island, I know my ancestors came in through Ellis Island, and it was just this island checkpoint where people got processed and added into the American experience. So yeah, let's check it out. All right, here's some of those early people coming into this country, immigrating away, hanging out by Ellis Island. There it is, and then Statue of Liberty is welcoming them in. Oh, yeah, here's a poem about the Statue of Liberty. I think it's amazing, but I'm not going to read it right now. And this is kind of a cool one. So the predominant ancestry of the population around the United States. So as we see here, there's a whole lot of people with German ancestry. And I know this with certainty. My mother is Irish. My father is German. So I kind of have, I think that's the two biggest chunks of white folks in the United States. Way up here, you got some Norwegian. For whatever reason, Utah is a whole lot of English people. So, hey, that's cool. A lot of Mexican people live near the border. That makes sense. And then, what do you got? Some Italians in New York. Yeah, New York Italians. They're always so big into that. And what is Nevada specifically? It looks like we're kind of English, Mexican, Irish. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then a bunch of French people in Louisiana and also near Canada. French. All right, but as you can see here, the white immigrant population of the United States, the vast majority of them have German ancestry. So if you know if you identify as a Caucasian person of American descent, odds are your family has some German roots. And I know that originally in like 1776, when we were founding America, there was a serious conversation if the national language of this country should be German. But we ultimately chose English because England was our former colony. But and this really shows you that almost all of the immigrants before 1985 came from Europe. It was only after 1985 that immigration from Mexico, from Asian countries, that really started to increase. So it's going to be actually quite rare to find people of Mexican heritage or Asian heritage in America that have multiple generations in this country. So it's definitely still a part of our immigrant character that is still being resolved in even the modern day. All right, so now let's talk about immigration in Nevada specifically. So for a while, Nevada was really ignored by the United States. We got it from the Mexican-American War, and we weren't really doing a lot with it. But eventually what happened was, in 1859, we discovered this silver mine, this just mountain that was basically full of silver, really close to modern-day Carson City. And this huge thing of silver was known as the Comstock Lode. Biggest silver mine in the world, 140 million pounds of silver. Holy cow. And so all kinds of people came. A lot of them were sort of legacy people from the California gold rush. So they're like, hey, look, there's silver right next door. Let's mine it. And yeah, these people came in, they basically carved out that entire mountain, and they built Carson City on top of it. And they said, well, a lot of us still live here. Let's make this a state, and let's make this our capital city. So that's why they call us the Silver State, because a whole lot of silver. There you go. Just makes logical sense. All right, let's skip ahead through all this. So look at that. Oh, it's a silver and gold nugget. That's cool. And there's the first, the start of Carson City. There we are mining out under Carson City, and then the Comstock lode. Get it? So much silver. Okay, but now let's talk about Vegas specifically. So in '59 we became a state, but then for the next roughly 50 years, kind of things happened in northern Nevada, but southern Nevada was completely ignored. There was a railroad stop here. It was called the Las Vegas Railroad Stop, but only like 100 people lived here. And during the Great Depression, the United States federal government said, like, we really got to come up with some big projects, maybe a project to bring more electricity and more water resources in the southern United States, try to do something more productive with this desert. So geologists did a whole bunch of mapping, and they found the best place to build a dam to tap electricity from the Colorado River would be right where the Hoover Dam is now. So the U.S. government decided to build the largest hydroelectric dam in the world at that time, called the Hoover Dam, and people from all over the United States came to Las Vegas to build that dam. And the dam's still working well today, so they did a good job, and they built it, what is this, almost like 80 years ago. So this is the first aerial photo of Las Vegas. You can see there's very few city blocks there. It's basically just like the downtown area we know of today. And okay. Resources very easily, and this project literally put Las Vegas on the map. People started to build the first casinos, and our economy grew from there. So without the Hoover Dam, this city would have never ever existed. It would have just been too dang hot and wouldn't have had enough water, electricity to manage. But things are cool now. So thanks, guys. Thanks for showing the immigrant character of Las Vegas. All right, so yep, there's downtown Vegas, and there we are. We made the desert bloom. That's pretty cool. Hoover Dam, check it out if you haven't been there. I've had some kids still haven't been there. Okay, and I think, am I about 150? Yep, I'm good. All right, I'll stop it here and get you on the next video. Peace out.